Hey everybody, and welcome to the Tactical Games podcast. I'm here with Shane Coley, captain of Team Glock, world champion pistol shooter. You got a resume in the shooting sports. Like, what else? You're a power lifter, or what? What do we call it? Olympic lifter.
Olympic lifter.
Olympic lifter. Training think tank. You used to work out there. You've got like the pedigree of an incredible Tactical Games athlete. Why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction of who you really are and talk to us about competing in Tactical Games?
Well, I'm Shane Coley, captain of Team Glock, like Nick said. Been in the shooting sports now, I think, for roughly 21, 22 years.
Wow.
Started when I was 13 back in 03 at, it's called the Mississippi Classic, which is a USPSA match. First major competition, and kind of at that moment fell in love with it.
Yep.
Was an avid baseball player through high school. Love sports, have always been an athlete, into sports my whole life, and then kind of realized that I had a knack for shooting. It was something I did with my dad. It was kind of a father-son, relationship that him and I could have. And then kind of towards the end of my high school career, the Army Marksmanship Unit became kind of an option, which was a special missions unit in the Army. It's their focus on competition shooting training, training elite soldiers, developing new training curriculums for the Army. And even other branches they've worked with, Marine Corps shooting team, the Air Force, the Navy. So that kind of became an option and a goal that I wanted to pursue.
Sure.
So in 2009, I enlisted in the United States Army and was selected for the unit. I was selected prior to my enlistment. I knew I was going there when I enlisted. Basic training, went to the Army Marksmanship Unit, stayed there for, I think, until 2015. And then the opportunity at Glock arose, and it's been my ultimate dream this whole time.
Sure.
It's like I've always referred to it as like a farm league kid for the Braves getting called up to the big leagues. Like this was me getting called up to the big leagues. So it's been a dream come true, and being able to compete, being able to shoot, being able to work at Glock, the organization is amazing. And now the Tactical Games, it's a new adventure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of I've had a history in CrossFit. Olympic lifting is kind of a big passion of mine. The whole health and fitness aspect of it. So now being able to combine both of them, it's been a really interesting journey.
That's very cool. So I heard about you before you ever came to the sport. And like, obviously I was never big into USPSA. I've shot local USPSA matches. I have fun doing it, but I heard about you through Cal, member of Team Glock. She was like, oh yeah, Shane, he competes here. He works out at my gym. He's awesome. He's an incredible marksman. He's great at shooting. I'm going to get him out there one day. And that lasted for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And then one day we finally realized that you were coming out. I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Tell us a little bit about your first experience competing in the Tactical Games.
So that's a very, very true story. Khaled, when we hired her on, obviously I wanted to bring her in for Tactical Games.
Yep.
I knew this was a very large growing market for us, and Cal was doing great. It's still doing great. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring her onto the team. And she's done phenomenal. But when she came in, her thing was, I want you to come out to a Tactical Games with me. And at first, I'll be honest, I was a little hesitant just because it's new. It's not. I didn't know what was going on. With USPSA, I've done it for so long. Like my checklist for travel, how I train, compete, my methodologies, everything I do is like just a standardized checklist that works for me.
Yep.
Tactical Games, something totally new, totally different. I've never done it before. So she finally talked me into it, and Maxton, North Carolina was my first one. Got all my gear together. I was training, thought I would do okay, but didn't really know what to expect. And then, to be perfectly honest, I showed up at the range the first day, and I thought it was mass chaos. There's people everywhere. There's stage briefs. There's groups of people over here. There's groups of people going over here. I'm trying to read the schedule. None of it makes sense to me. And so I had Cal walk me through, what does all this mean? What's my athlete number? How does this work with the squatting? What am I looking at? Yeah. So she explains it all, and I kind of started figuring it out. But the first one was it was really eye-opening, but also I thought it was a really incredible experience.
Great.
It was phenomenal people. Everyone there was willing to help. I had a ton of questions, obviously, because there was a lot of nuances that I didn't realize that, guys that had been competing for a long time kind of had figured out along the way. And I just had questions, why do you have this? Why do you do that? What's your strategy for this? After this movement, kind of what's your rep scheme here?
Right.
Things like that. And everyone was so welcoming. We've done something like this before. If you don't want to gas yourself out, then here's kind of how I would tackle this. So the aspect of the community I thought was phenomenal.
Yep.
And the stages were great. It was just fun. Parts of it were really crappy. The 5 mile run, the first thing I did was the 5 mile run.
So you got it before it got hot out.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah.
But that was like my first intro to the tactical games.
Welcome to the tactical
And I'm like,
games.
dude, I got to run with all of my stuff on. And I mean, big mass guy, not a big runner.
Right.
So about halfway through it, I'm like, why did I do this? This is not what I signed up for. There's no shooting. I don't get to lift anything heavy. I just have to run forever, it feels like. But I mean, it's something I need to do anyway. I need to get better at running. It's, you know, the
it's
mindset.
a life skill.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And that's one thing I love so much. I've done 2 now. And the idea of not only living a healthy lifestyle, being in the gym, being fit, being, you know, a better person, and also incorporating the shooting aspect of it, I've really connected with. So I think for me, that's been the 2 big things is, you know, I get to be a fitter, healthier version of me, and also get to continue, you know, in the shooting sports world.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously everybody's interpretation, everybody's idea of what fitness is a little bit different. You know, there's a lot of people that are in powerlifting, Olympic lifting, bodybuilding that view themselves as being fit, but then you try to get them like run a mile, you know, and like those, to me, that's a life skill. Being able to run a mile is a life skill. Being able to physically get your body up and over things and under things, like a 600-pound deadlift is cool.
Right.
You know, 350-pound clean and jerk is cool. But like, if you can't bend over and touch your toes, like, is that really a life skill?
Right.
So that's what we try to do. We try to make sure that the fitness is, it makes sense in something for what people need to do every day.
Right.
It's transferable, specifically for people that are in law enforcement, people that are in the military. You know, that's what our tactical division is. That's what it's based on. The weights are what I would consider to be something that an average human being should be able to move, should be able to navigate. So I think you found a great home there, and hopefully you're enjoying that division so far. What do you think about it?
It's different. I mean, the first one I did was intermediate, and, you know.
Which is a great way to start.
I got made fun of a lot for that. I'm not going to name drop anybody.
Because you're super strong.
I won't name drop anyone. You guys know who you are. But I got made fun of a lot for that. The main reason I did it was because it was my first one.
Yeah.
I had no idea what to expect. Didn't know what I was getting myself into. Had no idea, you know, what the fitness level was going to require.
Right.
If my shooting could overcome the fitness, what the balance was going to be. And what I found was the weights, I don't want to say this negatively, but they were a little light.
Yeah,
I felt like I could move pretty quick.
Right.
And, you know, I compared times from like my stages in intermediate to the tactical guys to the elite guys.
Yep.
And I was doing stages in 6 minutes where they were taking 12 to 14, maybe even time cap.
Right.
So when I see that amount of difference in the stages, I realized that, okay, this isn't the division I need to hang out in.
Right.
And, you know, I was fortunate to win that division. It was a great first experience, but I knew I needed to move up.
Yep.
And first tactical that I did was at Utah.
Yep.
And it was very different. Guys are a lot fitter.
Yeah.
And it was kind of eye-opening the first day because it became a situation where the shooting didn't cover as much of the fitness for me.
Sure.
And it was very apparent, and I realized that. But, you know, I had to lean on shooting because that is my advantage.
Yep.
I can shoot faster. I wouldn't say I'm more accurate, but I can cover time over a lot of the guys, just in the relative speed of me on the line, loading the gun, shooting, and then getting back to the fitness. I can cover 15 to 20 seconds, which gives me some sort of an advantage. And even, I thought this was funny in Utah, such a silly skill of being able to load mags fast really paid off.
Dexterity.
Yes. Yeah. And I never thought, because I've always had this thing, you know, people use the up-lulus.
Yeah.
And I've always loved to race them in competitions because I've never used up-lulus. I've never used any loading device. And I've always had this challenge. Whenever I see someone using them, I want to race them.
Yeah.
So I've gotten really good at load mags. And then on the assault bike stage, you know, it was like you get your however many calories you earn, there's so many bullets you get, and you have to load them going to the line. And I'm watching guys load mags and how they're staging bullets, and you know, they're picking them up off the barrel. They're one at a time out of the box, or they get dumped in their hand and they're dropping them everywhere. And I'm like, this is my dream. This is awesome. So I told the judge, I'm like, just dump in my hand, and I walked up to the line, just loading the whole time, and I was light years ahead of folks.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was funny, just because it's a skill that I was like a own personal challenge for me that turned out to be something useful.
Yeah. There's a lot of people don't understand. They think the time is to be made up on the fitness, or, you know, there's seconds to be gained on the firing line, but you're exactly right. That transition time between weapon systems, getting through your clearing procedure properly, things like dexterity when it comes to loading magazines, those are all skills that can be trained, should be trained, and that will save you seconds per round, which 10 seconds per round over 4 rounds, you're talking about almost a minute of time. That's just dead time for everybody else. So that's 4 shots that you don't have to make, or 40 seconds of work that you can slow down a little bit. Now your heart rate's less because you've slowed that fitness down a little bit. So that's absolutely that's part of the game, and I'm glad that you're like starting to realize that now after a couple competitions. And I definitely I've got you in my top 3 for nationals so I think I need you to show up.
I hope I don't disappoint. And there's, I sit around. I mean, in USPSA, we get 5 minutes in a walkthrough to basically game the stage.
Right.
So I come from a gaming background.
Yeah.
So I walk up and I look at the stages and I look at what people are doing. I listen to the briefs. And there's small nuances that I can find where I feel like I can make that advantageous for me.
Yep.
Because, like I said, in Utah, I realized that I'm not the fittest guy on the range. There's guys that are way fitter than me.
Yep.
And that's okay. I can get there. I can train that stuff. But I can offset some of it by shooting.
Yeah.
Obviously, the accuracy is really important, but also the transition times,
Yep.
the positions. I see a lot of guys that they get up to a tank trap or a barricade, and they spend 15 to 20 seconds just finding a position.
Yeah.
And knowing what that position should look like immediately saves ample amount of time. Like you said, in one round, you lose 8 to 12 seconds. Doesn't seem like a lot. But then you do it over the course of 4 rounds, over 7 or 8, 10, 11 events. You're looking at however many minutes that you're losing just in dead time.
Yep.
So there's those little nuances I feel like with my background that I can game a little bit, and they're not going to offset a guy that's light years ahead of me in fitness, but they're going to give me some advantage, which me being so new in the sport, I find I need all the advantage I can find.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So being a part of Team Glock, I think you guys, like, obviously you've got access to some pretty cool things. It's been really cool from our perspective to see Cal was not the best shooter when she started out in the tactical game. She just didn't have a much experience with it. She was incredibly fit, one of the most fit women I've met in my entire life, but her marksmanship lacked. Now she's shooting for Team Glock. She's obviously, you guys have been training her, and her proficiency in marksmanship has gone up tremendously. Outside of her just having a child, I think she would be crushing everybody. But like, she's literally during the last event, like breastfeeding in between events. Like, she's drained. I get it. But it's been really cool to see her training, her going from a different weapon system. She used a 2011 platform before. She's shooting a Glock now, and her proficiency has gone up tremendously. There's a misnomer, and we see it online every once in a while, where people are like, you have to spend $4,000 on a gun to be good in the sport. But that's not the case, right? Like, can you talk to us a little bit about performing with the pistol that you have, performing the best that you can with what you've got?
I think it goes back to the old saying. It's the the Indian, not the arrow.
Yeah.
It's how it applies to how proficient you want to be with whatever weapon system you choose. Right. In my position, I want to show people with Glock that you don't need the $3,000 gun to be an excellent shooter. There shouldn't be that barrier of entry for people that want to get into the sport. You don't have to go to the dealer and buy, whatever expensive gun out there that someone has told you is going to make you, this gun here is going to make you the best shooter.
Right.
With a Glock, you can be as good or better than anyone else on the range. And I feel like in a lot of my career and Cal's career and a lot of us that we've been able to prove that. Yep. And, the gun I shoot is a stock Glock 34 with our performance trigger in it. Yeah. There is no other aftermarket parts in that gun. Yeah. And, being in the tactical games now, that gun performs as good or better than any other pistol out there. Right. And in most cases, I saw this a lot in Utah with the dust storm that came through. Oh yeah. The reliability of our gun. It's light years ahead of other products out there. And I saw guns going down on the line. People were having malfunctions. They're having to clear jams in the middle of the firing sequence. Which in that case, now you're losing 6, 7, 8 shots, which is 80 seconds, right? Just for malfunctions. Yeah. And then now you're coming back, you're doing your work. Then when you get back to the line, now you're thinking, well, is my gun going to do it again? Right. And you don't have that confidence in your pistol. And I just want people to realize that that barrier of entry shouldn't exist. Yeah. You can take your Glock, go to the counter, buy your 34, buy your 47, and be as competitive as anyone else. Yep. And I want us to show that.
And that's exactly it. And we see it a lot with rifles as well. People that shoot like gamer rifles, vice duty rifles. We are in really harsh environments. That dust that you saw in Utah, I mean, that dust is at every one of the ranges that we go to. There's like, we get rain, we get, you name it, environmentally, it happens at our matches. But that's the real world, right? Like, you don't get to shoot in an air-conditioned range when, you actually have, whenever you're using a gun. If you're out hunting, if it's a defensive situation, whatever it might be, you have to respond to whatever environment you're in. Right. And our competitions are in those environments. So a duty weapon is always going to operate. That's like the Glock, if you pull a trigger, it's going to shoot.
Right.
And that's it's been awesome to see that. And I've definitely seen my fair share of people that have spent a ton of money on weapons that should have spent it on training. And instead, now they're stuck with this very expensive paperweight that they don't know how to use. So it's been really cool to see how your team's prepared Cal and gotten her much better. And now she's shooting a Glock, and she's shooting incredibly well. And obviously as are you. So, is that ever something that you felt like you had to overcome, or is it like, how did you overcome shooting against guys? Because what division did you shoot in USPSA, or do you shoot?
Right now it's carry optics, production, and limited.
Okay, got it. Okay. So it's not like you're shooting open with the race guns and stuff like that.
I used to. Years ago, that's what I shot.
Yeah. Oh, when you were at AMU, is that what you were? Yeah. So it's definitely cool to see people running duty weapons in our competition and excelling and winning in our competition. The guy that finished 5th at Nationals in Elite Division last year, factory stock Glock. And it's awesome to see that. I think he had irons. Oh yeah, it was irons at that point too.
That's
because it was we weren't allowing red dots yet. Yeah. So it was irons at that time. So it was really, really cool to see that.
I like seeing stuff like that, because it just goes to show that if you put the time in training and get comfortable with the platform, then you can perform as good or better than anything else out there. And it's always awesome to see stuff like that happen.
Yep. So for this year, into nationals, what are your goals going into Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
To be honest, obviously the right answer is always to win.
Yeah, of course.
But because this is such a new sport for me, there's still, I feel like, so many things that I have to learn and kind of experience first. My goal, honestly, is to go out there and do well.
Yeah.
Do well, for me, for the organization, for Glock, for our team, be a good competitor and a good part of the community, and just do well. Don't make any critical errors in the shooting aspect, especially because, like I said, that's the one advantage that I feel like I can hang on to.
Yep.
So I don't want to have. In Utah, I had a big shooting mistake that haunted me for a little while.
What was it?
Offset on the rifle.
Okay.
It was the stage with the burpees over the box with the bag.
Yep.
That offhand rifle portion of it.
Yep.
I didn't know the hold correctly. And it took me, I think, 5 or 6 shots to really figure out the hold.
You were inside your zero, so you were shooting low.
Yep.
Impacts were low. Yeah. Yep.
And that was just a huge mistake on my part, and I should have known better. It was kind of like a fuzzy brain. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Let's get shots downrange. Yep. And then it hit me, and I was like, oh my God, you're an idiot. Why are you doing this? So I feel like that was a critical mistake that cost me a lot of points. But not doing things like that. Going into each stage with a legitimate plan, something I feel confident and comfortable with, and then just pushing myself with the fitness.
Yep.
And the thing I've told people is, with the fitness side of it, I don't feel like it's like a complete CrossFit workout that a lot of us are used to, like the full 20-minute AMRAP. It's pieces of that. It's 3 to 5 minutes of work. Then you have a minute and a half of shooting, so you get that break to kind of reset your heart rate, recover a little bit. And then you come back, and it's kind of like another 3 to 5 minute time frame of work.
Right.
And so if I can maintain the heart rate and maintain the I guess I want to say the consciousness or the fundamental skills up top, and not have any serious dumb mistakes, then I would be happy.
Running your own race is a big part of it when it comes to the fitness aspect, and I think that's something that's very different from our sport than other shooting sports, right? Like, if you're shooting a stage in USPSA, you're the only one on the stage. You might have seen somebody go before you, or you've been watching people run through the stage, but you don't have anybody next to you. So you don't have anybody's pace to push off of, unless it's a shoot off at the end, right? So that's something that I find people getting sucked into other people's pace, whether it's on the firing line, or you want to talk about that a little bit?
I love that. That was one thing I saw in North Carolina that I absolutely loved. Yeah. So in USPSA, it's one guy at a time. Right. Everybody sits back and watch, and you saying, shoot your own race. In USPSA, that's very applicable because you get sucked into what somebody else does. And if you're uncomfortable with the stage, or it's not something that's one of your strengths, then you can get sucked into their time or their
stage
points,
plan,
and you make their mistake. They want you to do what they want you to do, and you get sucked into it. So in that realm, it's very important to run what you're comfortable with. Right. And that's a big numbers game. With hit factors and points and all that stuff. It's a numbers game. And sometimes you have to be willing to give away points to not make a big mistake. The tactical games, I love being able to look up and down the line and race people.
Yeah.
Because the shooting portion, I can zone everyone else out.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
not like a shoot off thing where I can hear everyone else's shots going off and I feel like I need to shoot faster. I
Yeah.
can zone people out and do my own shooting.
Yeah.
But seeing people up and down the line in the fitness side of it is a huge motivator.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, most of us all are competitive by nature, and
yeah,
I'm
sure.
super competitive.
Yeah.
And when I feel like I'm starting to suck or I start feeling sorry for myself and I see someone like inching ahead of me, I'm just like, oh man, now it's a race. So that aspect of it, I truly love.
That's awesome. Do you have a cadence in your head when you go up to the line? Is it dependent on distance? Like I've seen a lot of the guys that I know that have been shooting for a very long time they'll approach a stage, specifically an action stage, and they know what their cadence is going to be based on distance. So when you go up to the line, do you have a cadence plan that you're going to be firing at? Is that something you think about?
No, I don't really believe in. I've heard a lot of guys talk about cadences over the year, and I don't really believe in cadences.
Yep.
I kind of only shoot what the sights tell me to shoot.
Gotcha.
That's always been my methodology.
Yep.
If the sights are there, I'm pulling the trigger. If
Yeah.
they're not there, then I'll kind of pause, reset, let the sight settle, do what I need to do, fix my grip, whatever. But I'm not. If the sight's there, then there's no reason for me not to pull the trigger.
Yep.
So I don't want to feel like I have to shoot to this certain speed that I've created just because that's what I've said I need to do. If the sight's there, I'm pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
So depending on the distance, obviously that changes a little bit. Sometimes I'll be a little bit more controlled with the trigger pull and with the gun, but I don't really have a cadence going into it. Like I saw in Utah, I forget the sandbag and rope stage.
Yep. Oof.
Yeah. Oof. That stage hurt. That one hurt a lot, and we have to do it again.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite tactical game stages that's ever been programmed, by the way.
I'm excited to do it again, and borderline, I don't want to say nervous, but anxious maybe the right word.
Yeah. Because you know what it's going to feel like.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt, but I think I can do it better.
Yeah.
But anyway, the first iteration of rifle, I shot a decent pace. I thought was respectable. And then the second, third, and fourth round, each round, my rifle pace got faster.
Yeah.
I got more comfortable, and by that time, my heart rate's way higher. I'm tired, but the optic was looking good.
Yeah.
So if the optic is there, I need to be pulling the trigger.
Right.
And it was one of those situations where I could gain time on the line, get back to doing work, and I could pull ahead of some guys.
Yeah.
And I realized that, I need to maintain this advantage.
That's so obviously our sport is a mixture of shooting and fitness, right? It's the two things combined together. Do you feel like you're at a disadvantage when it comes to fitness? Because you've got a fitness background, but you came in obviously with a much stronger shooting background. Do you ever feel like you're at a disadvantage because you don't have that fitness background? Or do you think that your shooting proficiency helps carry you through the stages?
Only in long movements.
Only in run? Yeah.
No, I don't think it's a disadvantage at all. I think you guys have done an excellent job on balancing both of them. I would personally like to see some more like two-gun style stages, action stuff.
Yeah, what you're good at?
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously for obvious reason. But I think you guys have done an excellent job at balancing both. Because I shot really well in North Carolina and then still shot really well in Utah, but I didn't win.
Right.
And it was part of the fitness. But some of the fitness events were not things I was good at, and other guys were better, obviously.
Sure.
But there were other fitness portions that I held my own in.
Yep.
And as I progress in this, the fitness will come, the fitness will get better, but I don't feel like there's a disadvantage per se to it because it's a lot of grunt work.
Yep.
And I really like grunt work. It's, pick up heavy object and move over here.
Right.
I can do that.
Yep.
And I feel like I can do that for as long as I need to do it. It's a lot of just, kind of maintaining the consciousness, well, not really the consciousness, but maintaining the heart rate. Don't get ahead of yourself in your mind and just kind of staying focused.
Yep.
Don't lose the focus. Even when you get really tired, you kind of start making mistakes. But as long as I can maintain that focus, even when I'm tired and not make mistakes shooting, then I feel like there's a good balance there.
Yeah. No, so you've been interested in fitness. How long have you been? You said you played collegiate. What was it? Baseball?
No collegiate baseball, just
okay.
high school.
High school baseball.
Yeah,
okay.
High school baseball.
So you've been interested in fitness for a very long time. How do you think that fitness has helped in your shooting capabilities?
I think tremendously, and in a few different aspects. Because if you look at USPSA, there's guys that have probably never touched a gym that are phenomenal shooters.
Sure.
They're genuinely amazing shooters, and they do excellent. So in USPSA, I wouldn't come out and absolutely say that fitness is a necessity. You don't have to have a CrossFit background or a weightlifting background to be successful. There's guys that have proven that wrong. They're phenomenal shooters, but they may have never been into a gym, and that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
But I think for me, being into fitness, for one, it's a way of life. I think it's made me a better, more I guess, better all around athlete, more coordination, more skill and movement, more control over me.
Explosiveness, ability to stop, cut, move.
Yep. And then the other aspect that I attribute it to is the mental focus throughout the days.
Yeah.
I feel like people that have a really strong fitness background, they can handle the long, hot, grueling days better.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes than other people can. They don't feel the fatigue, as fast as some others do. Because even in USPSA, we'll have days where we're on the range for 8, 9, 10 hours in the hot sun with little to no food, depending on what you decide to bring. And I think having a strong fitness background kind of prepares your body for, those situations.
Even the awareness of just, hydration.
Right.
Like I need to, I'm going to be out in the sun for 10 hours a day. I need to hydrate all day. It's something that if you come from a place where your family drinks Coca-Cola for dinner every night and like that's what your diet consists of, you might not think about that, but your body is depleting itself of like vital functions as you become dehydrated. So, having that in your back pocket of like, oh gosh, I should probably drink some water right now.
Yeah.
Like that's,
and I'm not a nutritionist or a scientist, but I'm pretty sure two of the first things to go when your body starts losing nutrition and hydration is your eyesight and your brain.
Yeah.
Like your neural functions.
Yeah.
And in my sport, in USPSA, those are two critical things that we need.
Absolutely.
And I was told many years ago, I want to say probably around 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in that time frame, that your best shooting, and this came from one of the pros back in the day, your best shooting better come at the end of the day when everyone else is tired.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that always stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, okay, why? And he's like, because everyone else is tired. They can't see. They're not thinking right. And you need to gain all the points you can when they make those mistakes.
That's awesome. I love that.
And I've always held on to that. That's always been something I've always thought of. When it gets 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we've got 2 or 3 stages left.
Everybody else
is when I need to shoot the best.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's and it's funny because like half of our stages at the second half of the day, you're tired, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've already done 2 stages that day. You've got 2 left. If you're not eating, if you're not drinking water, you're not hydrating, you're not doing the things that you need to do throughout the day, you're going to start dragging. And then not only is that affecting today, that's affecting tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if you're shooting a 2 or in this case a 3-day match, you just continue to dig yourself into a deeper hole.
Yep.
So,
and I kind of realized that in Utah. I think it was Sunday. It was when I asked you for the electrolyte pack.
Yeah.
I was sitting in the booth with one of our sales guys, and I picked up one of the pistols and was kind of just playing with it on the table, and like the dot was shaking like crazy, and I was like, "Oh, buddy, this isn't good." And the last stage I had to shoot was the strong hand support hand stage, and I'm like, "Oh no, I can't be like this." So, and I realized that I was dehydrated. I needed to get a bunch of water in my system. My wife's a chiropractor, so she's super into nutrition and health. So I'm texting her like, what do I need to do for an immediate fix as fast as possible? Like, I'm back on the stage in, at this point, I think hour and a half.
Yeah.
And she's like, find some sugar, eat anything you can put in your body, get some electrolytes. So I found you. Thank God you had some packets.
Yep.
I chugged all those. I ate whatever I could. And I didn't feel 100%, but I felt good enough to do well on the stage. But it was kind of the eye-opening moment. I'm out here on the range all day. I've competed all day the day before.
Yep.
And if this isn't a priority, eventually it will catch you.
Yep. I mean, caloric consumption too, if you think about that, like running we'll say USPSA stage, a 20 to 60 second stage, you're going to burn calories, but you're not burning calories like you are in a 12 or 15 or, sometimes we do hour-long stages. Like nutrition is a very important thing. And I say nutrition, just eating, just ingesting calories so your body has something to actually continue to burn for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
It's definitely a part of our sport that other people don't think about.
The first day at North Carolina, this is embarrassing to say, I totally forgot food.
Just altogether no food?
Nothing. I didn't eat anything. Actually, the only thing I ate was like a juice packet or something that Jacob gave me in his car. That was the only food I had all day. And by the end of the day, I was so grumpy and hangry. I just wanted to get off the range and go get food. And I was like, what a dumb mistake. You're going to a fitness event that you're out on the range all day. And the thing you forget is nutrition.
Yeah.
Like I had nothing. Like this is embarrassing. But it's one of those, I guess you don't know what you don't know.
When I first started competing, I would always fly in. Like I'd leave work Friday afternoon. I'd get whatever the last flight out was. And I'd get in after the grocery stores had closed. Check-in was always at like 5:45 the next morning. So I never had food unless there was food there. I never had water unless there was water there. And I remember days where I just you're just sitting there in a hot car trying not to die.
Yeah.
In whatever desert that you're in at the time.
Yeah. I actually had to leave I think it was the first or second day of North Carolina. But I was sitting in the truck the whole time. I had the truck running the whole time, had the AC on full blast.
Yeah.
It was so hot there.
Yeah, so we're moving further north during July next year.
Yeah, it was brutally hot. But the truck almost ran out of gas. So I had like an hour and a half before my next stage. So I packed all my stuff and drove up to the nearest gas station, refilled the truck, and then came back out to the range and AC back up and just took a nap. But I didn't realize how exhausting it would be, like how taxing it would be on the body. But I mean, it was an eye-opening experience, and I've learned from it.
That's awesome. So what's something you're looking forward to at Nationals? You've got the programming now. What's something you're looking forward to?
Honestly, I think I'm looking forward to Nationals as a whole.
Awesome.
I mean, the only 2 events I've done have been 2-day events. So this one being 3 days. I think for us, it's a total of 11 events. So I'm curious to see how my body responds over the 3 days. I'm going to obviously have a very stark focus on, making sure my nutrition is right. I'm hydrated throughout the 3 days. The stages make sense to me. There doesn't seem to be anything that's, I guess, too extravagant, except maybe the long movement, as you guys referred to it in the stage briefs. I'm curious to see what that looks like. But other than that, I think everything will be kind of what I expect. I mean, obviously grueling and gritty, but I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I like the heavy objects, move yourself over bar, pick up heavy sandbag, walk it down range, farmer's carries. So I think just really pushing myself and seeing, what my limiter is. I kind of feel like here I want to find what my limiter is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one of the things, and you mentioned it earlier, was like the gaming aspect of the sport. And we do, I don't want to say everything that we can, but we do our best to eliminate some of the gaming that can happen, right? But we also leave room for some gaming to happen as well, right? Like you shouldn't ever be able to blow the brakes off somebody because you gamed a stage. But if there's competitive advantage that can be made inside the rules, finding them is part of that's the game part of the tactical games, right? So I think it's interesting when we get shooters that come from other disciplines, because that's such a big thing in other disciplines. And I was lucky enough to work with Jared for so long, and he was, he's a 3-gunner, and like all the guys around here are all pro 3-gunners, and I get exposure through them and seeing how they do things, how they look at certain stages, how they attack certain things. So I always like when people come from the shooting industry into the sport, because they approach it with that. And I like to watch how people do things and how they navigate things. So I'm really excited to see how you do this weekend. And like I said, I picked you in my top 3. So I'm hoping you don't disappoint me this weekend.
Me too. Me too. And in regards to the gaming, I do have one question. I noticed in the stage briefs for the long range stage that the penalties for misses got much higher than it was in North Carolina. Is there a reason for that?
It's over 200 yards.
Okay.
So and that's pretty standard for us. So penalties over 200 yards, or any shot taken over 200 yards is generally a 20-second penalty. Anything inside of 200 yards is a 10-second penalty.
Okay.
So we do the movers specifically. So we have Marathon coming out, and they've got robots. The robots are either 1 vital to neutralize or 2 shots anywhere to neutralize.
Right.
So that's why there's an additional penalty for an FTN on the movers.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the reason for that is we don't ever want anybody, a gaming aspect, to just step up to the line and go, done, and then they beat everybody if there wasn't enough penalties to be able to gain from that.
Yep.
That was one of the things that I learned from Jared very early.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah. All right, Shane. Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say I did that at North Carolina on the 2-gun stage.
Did you?
Yeah.
What did you do?
The 2 very back targets, the
600 and the 550, yeah.
I asked what the time was if I missed, and I forget what the penalty was now, but I was like, that's it? And he's like, yeah. I was like, so if I shoot it once and I don't hit it and I just stop, that's all I get? And he's like, yep. I'm like, okay. I say that because I'd been watching guys sit up on the roof and they time out.
Yeah.
Just shoot mag after mag at those 600-yard targets. So I was like, I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I can just shoot a shot at each. I lucked up and hit one of them. But the other one I shot at it and was like, okay, I'm done.
We saw people do it with a spinner last year.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's why we had to institute, we had a 1 minute and 45-second penalty for a spinner, which you've shot enough that you know how to shoot a spinner, but some people don't. And the people that had shot before knew that they could step up to the line and they could just shoot the rest of the stage, get to the spinner and call time, and then get that penalty instead of going all the way till cap and then not neutralizing the spinner. So it's something you gotta test. One of my buddies was just describing this past weekend. He shot a match locally here. It was a carbine match that had a spinner, and they had a target array on the sides of it. And his he wanted to take a shot at the spinner and then start shooting at the other steel that was around it. Like, that's an awesome idea if you have a break at the end of your rifle
Right.
and you're shooting off a bipod.
Yeah.
That's not something that you can do in our sport without
Right.
the setups that we
Right.
require. So we do think about those things, believe it or not. We do try to make sure that those things don't show up in stages, but every once in a while we have a miss, and great shooters like you that come in expose those things and help us improve too. So that's a big thing, is continuous improvement with the sport.
Yeah.
We will make mistakes, but the thing that we always try to do is learn from those mistakes, and bringing new blood in that have fresh ideas, that see things a little bit differently, is always great for us. So we're very happy to have you as part of it, and happy to have you out. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
Dude, I'm just thankful to be here. Like I said, I was hesitant to do my first one, and once I did it, I was hooked. So now I'm happy to be here, and after we get through this, I'll have a plan to kind of move into 2025, and I'll be back a lot for next year. So
that's awesome. Well, we hope USPSA isn't your sport anymore, and this becomes your sport. You can start calling the tactical games my sport.
Yeah,
that would be awesome, because you've been a great guy. We're very glad to have you and have Team Glock out for our competitions.
I appreciate it. We're happy to be here.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. We'll see y'all soon.